Hey everybody, this is Jackie Luqman.
And I'm Abdul Shahi Luqman.
And welcome once again to another episode of Live and Coffee Current Events and Politics in Luqman Nation.
The most threatening show anywhere. Again, we
And
back that up too.
so, listen, thank you all for being patient with us. We have been on an unintended hiatus. We have not meant to be away for as long as we have, but we've been really, really busy.
Yeah.
And look, life just takes over, and you just have to sometimes take a little bit of time to breathe. And we think we've done that. We're gonna try to get back on track, but listen, we're here to talk about one thing today. We had a whole nother. We actually had a part two to
Right,
the show that we did a month ago about reparations in Iran and some other. I keep saying that Iran. I'm sorry, reparations, Iran, and some other things. But obviously, the white supremacist terrorist massacres that happened yesterday have dominated the headlines, as they should. And as we said on our As We See It, our brief As We See It this morning on our way to church, we noticed that the way people have been talking about this, we talked specifically about black pastors and the role of the church, the role of the black church
Right.
in combating white supremacy, or at least helping black people fight white supremacy, and how the role of the black church has deteriorated from that, because a lot of people don't know that the black church, meaning there were lots of black churches, there was a network of black churches across this country that almost literally bankrolled the civil rights movement. We're not talking about just Martin Luther King Jr.
Oh, no.
But the civil rights movement had been going on for decades longer before the Montgomery bus boycotts and all that. So when black people would stand up and defend ourselves, a lot of times if we had a job, we get fired.
Right, that's true.
And not only would we get fired, but we'd be targeted by law enforcement and be hunted down by the Klan. And I mean, people think about abolitionists and the Quakers and all this kind of stuff, but who do you think paid people's rent? Who do you think bailed people out of jail? You know, who do you think bought people food and fed people's families and clothed them when they were punished by the establishment and by the state for standing up for their rights? Yes, it was organizations like SNCC and the NAACP, sure, but a lot of that in the background financing was done by black business and by black churches. So it was really disturbing for us, and it has been disturbing for us to see so many black churches be on the side of the white supremacist view of the faith, and also have the white supremacist response to these kinds of incidents where you got black pastors saying the same things white people are saying, talking about, oh, you know, what these people did is a cowardly act. White supremacy isn't cowardly. There's nothing cowardly about white supremacy. White supremacy is a brutal, frightening juggernaut of a beast of a system that is not afraid of us.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that you mentioned brutal, because anytime that you go with the intentions of committing that type of violence, knowing that you yourself could be killed, that isn't cowardly. It is brutal. It is unjust. But I mean, no one's called it what it should be called, which is terrorism.
Right.
The White House hasn't called it that. The President's House, because we're going to get back to that. The President's House is not the White House. The President's House. Trump, he said, what, you know, the first thing he said was, "Oh, it was a cowardly act," but he wouldn't call it terrorism. We said this morning, had these two shooters would have had a last name of Mohammed, or you know, or if they were identified as Muslim somehow, then the terrorist label would have came out not just from the politicians but from the media also. So you know, and there would have been no questioning the mental state if they were Muslim. There would have, or if they were black, there would have been no question of their mental state. They wouldn't care how disenfranchised they felt they were. They wouldn't care about their family back. They wouldn't care anything about it. It would be a rush for punishment. If they would have caught one alive,
Right.
it would have been a rush to punishment. And oftentimes when they don't catch one alive, then if they can't punish that person because they're dead, then the need for vengeance would either go after that person's family, or if the person comes from another nation, then we'll send drones, and so we have to have our pound of flesh,
Right.
this country,
Right.
But what's disturbing is that here it is, 250 mass shootings out of 250 mass shootings, I believe. It was 229 days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so this is more than one mass shooting a day. So we don't want to hear about black on black crime, the so-called black on black crime. We don't want to hear. This is not being committed by gangbangers in Chicago.
No.
This is not being committed by Bloods and Crips. Suge Knight has nothing to do with this. This is not done by all of these.
Like, who Suge?
Right. Suge Knight doesn't have anything to do with this. None, and so what happened is the fact that we need, this country needs to address its love for guns. The fact that most Americans think that the only amendments we have is the second one. Everyone knows about the Second Amendment, but don't know about the other amendments.
Right.
And so, and even after all of this death and carnage committed by white terrorism, white supremacy. Now, white terrorism, we call it that because that's what it is. But it's not new. White supremacist terrorism goes back to the founding of this nation.
Well, that's how the nation was founded.
Exactly. So it goes back to the founding of this nation. So the Native Americans faced white supremacist terrorism. Our ancestors faced white supremacist terrorism. We face white supremacist terrorism, and it comes in different forms. And we're talking about mass shootings now,
right?
And we're talking about the method of choice amongst these white terrorists, which is firearms. But then white supremacist terrorism also comes through institutions. Right. And we'll talk about that later on. But let's look at this. In 2 days, 29 people dead.
Right.
And like I said, these aren't, gangbangers in Chicago or LA. This isn't, this is not that we should minimize that violence.
Right.
But not that we should minimize that violence. But at the same time, we really need to deal with the white supremacist terrorism that the FBI themselves said that that these white nationalists, these white supremacists, these white young men, mostly young men, who attach themselves to the ideology of white supremacy, that they are the biggest threat in this country. They are the biggest threat. Not the so-called black identity extremists, not Black Lives Matter,
right?
Not Nina Turner,
Nina Turner,
young white men who attach themselves to the ideology of white supremacy have been identified by the FBI, not by Al Sharpton, not by Jesse Jackson, by the FBI as being the #1 threat to national security, within domestic national security.
Right. And I'm so glad you brought up the shootings in Chicago, in places like Chicago and LA, right, and gang violence. See, here's the difference between those issues, the issues of crime in some areas that is related, or violence in some areas that is related to crime, as opposed to these terrorist attacks. There have been identified and highly championed measures and efforts to address that crime, right? That violence.
Right.
There is all of this focus on stopping, people call it black on black crime, but you do know that there are like Asian gangs too, right? And they kill people just like they kill Asian people. Asian gangs kill Asian people.
Right, yeah,
The Italian mob basically kills Italians. That there is a Russian mob. They'll kill anybody who.
Right, exactly.
I mean,
but I'm sure that they.
But it's mostly Russian.
I'm sure they cut their teeth on killing Russians first. Though.
So this idea of I think that's the right word, intra group violence as some specific thing when it, or this unique thing when it comes to black people. That's garbage, because all groups of people have a criminal element within it for a whole bunch of reasons, and they all commit some kind of violence.
Yeah.
Again,
normally against the people that live closest to them.
Exactly. So, and that's another thing. Crime and violence are opportunistic, and proximity has a lot to do with it. Like if I'm gonna rob somebody, not to say that but let's just say that your average criminal, unless they are a serious bank robber, is not going to travel somewhere else to go stick somebody up for some money. That's so we all know this. I hope we knew that, and for those of you who didn't know that, okay, now I hope you know something a little bit new about this whole gang violence in Chicago and gang violence in LA. Yeah, there are programs that deal with that, and not just programs from politics and legislation. Don't get it twisted. The people who live in those communities, whether those people are black, Asian, Russian, Latino, the people who live in those communities fight those issues too.
Well, let's make a major distinction here. The major distinction is that black gangbangers in Chicago are not seeking out white people to murder.
Okay, so now
all right. Yes. So that you don't have gangbangers coming up with manifestos talking about we need to get rid of white people,
right?
Because of whatever acts they have to grind. Usually gang members kill other gang members. Normally, this is what happens. Mobsters kill other mobsters.
Right.
So you really don't find those type of people traveling 600 miles, just to find some enclave. You're not going to find a black Pea Stone or Gangster Disciple leaving Chicago, going all the way down to Phoenix, Arizona, to find white folks on the golf course and just mow them down, and say, and then leave a manifesto saying that, well, white folks are taking up all the land with their golf and it doesn't benefit anybody, and so and they wouldn't hire me and I can't join their clubs, so I just need to commit violence against them. That type of crime, that's the distinction. The distinction is that these white supremacist terrorists, they do travel. Distances to target certain people, and that's the thing. They're not going. They're targeting certain people, and they're targeting people who have nothing to do with whatever grievances that they claim to have. This is, and again, it's not new. It's rooted in the foundation of this country. We've seen it erupt. Historically, we've seen it really rear its ugly head during Reconstruction.
Yes, that's a great point, because people, we always bring up the history when we talk about any issue, because if you don't pay attention to the history of this country, if you keep believing this lie that America was great at some point, and that somewhere along the line America just declined and now something has to be done to make America great again, you really don't understand what this country has always been. You believe this lie. There was this period of time called Reconstruction. It was the reconstruction of this country's political and social fabric after the end of the Civil War.
The time period where this country could have gotten it right.
Yep. That is, and we almost did.
Yep.
Because during Reconstruction, there were more black elected officials in Congress than there even are today.
That's right, and also there was a willingness on the part of government to even get paid reparations. There was a part on government to integrate, at least as best as they could, to integrate black people into the fabric of the society.
Right. Or at the very least, if black people didn't want to be completely and fully integrated, because according to General Sherman's Field Order number 15, and which is affectionately known as 40 Acres and a Mule, Sherman actually asked the formerly enslaved, the people who were formerly enslaved, do you want to live by yourself on this 40 acres and a mule, or do you want this or do you want this 40 acres to be among the people where, you know, the plantations where he used to work, or and the people that he asked, who were represented, interestingly enough, by a delegation of black pastors. That's how far we've come. That's how far we've fallen in the faith community, in the black faith community, from true liberation theology and living out our faith in order to fight for justice and liberation for people. But the black pastor said, no, we don't want to live around those people.
Exactly.
We don't want to live. We want land so we can take care of ourselves. We don't want to live among white people. I think they've caused enough problems for us. And we wanna just be left alone so we can take care of ourselves. The delegation of African people didn't even ask for the mules. That was Sherman's idea.
Right.
Because there was this surplus of horses.
Well, I mean, Sherman, let's not give him too much credit. He was going to give black people the mules that was almost dead.
Right.
You know, that the
but
army...
he's like, well, it's too many of them to kill, so...
Yeah, that the army abused during the Civil War. You know, so... it wasn't like, you know, let's put it in proper perspective.
True.
You know, but it was during this Reconstruction period where this country had the opportunity to get it right, to really deal with the sins of slavery, the crime, the inhumanity of slavery. They could have got it right with the Native Americans. There was this period, but again, white terrorism.
Yep.
And when we say white terrorism, we're not just talking about the knuckle dragging thugs. We're talking about the white terrorists within government who decided that no, we're not going to give formerly enslaved Africans what they so justly deserve. But what we will do is we will give reparations to our Confederate brothers and sisters who committed treason against this union, and who fought a war against this union. It wasn't the formerly enslaved Africans who had every right to fight a war, but of course a lot of our ancestors did join on the side of the Union in order to fight for their own freedom. But there was the white terrorists, the white supremacists within the United States government itself, including Abraham Lincoln, who went to 3 or 4 different nations, including Guatemala, to ask if they would take us. He went to Brazil, he went to the Dominican Republic, he went to Guatemala, he went to 4 different nations, even Haiti, and Haiti said they would take. Haiti agreed to take some of us. And some of us went to Haiti, but yeah, Abraham Lincoln behind the scenes was like, I got these blacks, and they're not slaves anymore, and it's going to cost us. It's going to cost us a lot of money to make things right with them. Now the Civil War damn near bankrupt us, and
that's true.
Right, so now we got to deal with this black population. There's a lot of them. They're strong because they did all the work. They're the most skilled. Right. They're the healthiest people we have, and so they could cause us some problems. So hey, how about
you want them?
How about you take a few off our hands? You know what I mean? So yeah, the great emancipator. He tried to do that, but he wasn't the only one. Thomas Jefferson, a lot of them tried to deport us or get rid of us in some kind of way. But because our ancestors felt that that this belonged to them too. After all, they built it. So this belonged to us too. So why, I'm not going to build something for you and then you enjoy it, then I have to go somewhere else. That wasn't the understanding. But again, getting back to our point, the white supremacists in government derailed what the United States could have gotten right.
Exactly. And understand the timeline here. We're not just talking about, racist politicians enacting racist policies to get rid of the black. No, we're talking about the Klan and their friends in both parties. This lie that the Republicans were for the slaves and the Republicans wanted to end slavery. No, there were racists in both parties, even back then. And the Klan and other angry white people, angry because black people were not slaves anymore, literally just started slaughtering a bunch of people. And then where they couldn't just outright slaughter us, yes, they changed laws. They instituted the black codes and the pig laws and the we've talked about all this kind of stuff before, but there was an element of physical, racist, white supremacist terrorism and violence that arose during this period of time.
That's right.
And because we have never paid any attention, we've never given that the historical analysis and honestly owned up to it in this country that we really should have. We've never dealt with it. Here we are. Honestly, it goes all the way back to us being dishonest about how this country was founded. Some nice white people didn't come over here and just have a picnic with the Native Americans. That's not how it happened. There was some duplicity. There was a taking advantage of the hospitality of a people who literally looked at the European settlers and said, "Dang, they're gonna starve if we don't help."
Well, I mean, but see, the thing of it is that was the native, and I don't want to get off point too much, but that was the Native Americans showing their humanity.
Exactly.
See, I mean, so I remember being in school, and I'll say this real quickly. I remember being in school and having our teacher like make fun that the European settlers got Manhattan for $24 and some break,
Right.
not knowing Native American value system. None of us knowing what Native American value system. We felt like, yeah, that is kind of a bum deal. How but
Right.
understanding that with indigenous people, there is no such thing as owning land, and so
Right.
the land is for everybody. You use it, and then you move on, or we let you use it, and you get what the land produced for you, and and then you let somebody else use it if that's the case. But it wasn't the thing that, oh well, okay, we'll sell you this for $24. And Native Americans did, $24 meant nothing to them. But getting back to this white supremacist terrorism, you're right, Jackie. I mean, this is something that is rooted in this country. Right now is the 100th anniversary of Red Summer.
Yeah.
So it's the 100th anniversary of Red Summer. We spoke about Red Summer on this show. This was during a period in 1919 when there was what I call American pogroms, right, against African Americans in many cities across this country. And it was called Red Summer because of the blood letting that was going on, during that period. This was a time when black war veterans from World War I were being lynched and hung in their uniforms. A lot of this was due to economic insecurities and the need to establish or reestablish what white folks considered the status quo.
Right.
You had black veterans coming back from World War I being empowered, and feeling like and rightfully so, feeling like they're part of this republic, and that they fought and put their lives on the line for this republic, and and there's certain things that go with that. You can't. I'm not coming back to be treated like an N-word anymore. I'm not coming back to be relegated to this, relegated that. I mean, I went over there like any white man did, and went over there and defended this country, defeated its enemies, and so so respect is due. But then there was some whites. White terrorism was like, no, we need to establish. We want, and this is why this whole thing of "Make America Great" is so chilling, because it's the same theme. It's the same theme of, what do you mean? It's like in summer 1919. Or we could go back during that period of the destruction of Black Wall Street.
Right.
So now we're looking at whites who feel economically insecure and feel economically intimidated by so-called inferiors who they feel have more than them.
Right.
I mean, and so in this,
it's not supposed to be like that.
And the conditioning that they received in the society, and that many whites still receive in the society, is the fact that that those people who you deem inferior, they should never have more than you. And if they do have more than you, then they didn't attain it legally. We know this a lot of times when we get stopped because a cop think our car is too nice, or how you get that car. I can't afford that.
Right.
So I mean, so economics have always been an integral part of this white supremacist terrorism. Now we go into 2019, and we see that the recent examples of white supremacist terrorism has the same root. It's economics. This manifesto, pardon me, that we'll
Yep.
get into briefly,
Mm-hmm.
this shooter, this terrorist, basically mentioned about the lack of employment,
Mm-hmm.
the economic insecurity. He mentioned that corporations are screwing us over,
Yeah.
and you know, and
Sound familiar?
and wrecking the environment and all this stuff. You know, so it's again, but his answer is not to go to those institutions and people who's causing all this. No, again, it's like again, it's the well, I don't have this because of them,
Right.
and this rhetoric and this belief comes from, believe it or not, this belief comes from the top because politicians, and we know that this isn't nothing new. You know, we can't say that this is because even the shooter said that his attitude predates Trump. And so we can't just say that it's the Republican Party of the last 30 years or the Democratic Party of the last 30.
Mm-hmm.
No, politicians have been playing this game of going to poor, disinfected white people or disenfranchised white people, poor white people, and telling them that you don't have because of them.
Right.
You know,
Right.
and you could get more if they, if they weren't receiving so much. And that
Right.
message is still given today. You know, the fact about Trump wanting to cut food stamps and all of this stuff is a play towards their base, or who they're appealing to, this white nationalists.
Mm-hmm.
That our country is going broke because those people want handouts. Those people want,
Right.
they want an
Right.
increase in food stamps. They want Medicare for all. They want reparations. And you go out here and you work hard every day. They want to sit back and get a check. Why is it that reparations is always defined by certain white people as just us getting a check? Why that is so offensive to so many white people? It's like, well, who should get a check? Well, I mean, your ancestors got free land and slaves.
Right.
I mean,
right. You mad because we wanted you.
I mean, your ancestors got GI Bill. Your ancestors got the New Deal.
Mm-hmm.
Your ancestors was able to your ancestors were able, if they were from the South and they owned slaves, they were able to get back what they lost.
They actually got reparations after the Civil War.
I mean, and on and on and on and on and on.
Mm-hmm.
So we could point to plenty of times when the government had no problem helping out white America to a large extent. Even the immigrants that came here from, because then we hear that argument too. Well, my ancestors came from Europe in the early 20th century. Well, fine, but when they got here, guess what happened? The government not only, because there was a time that white folks was running rampant, the immigrants with crime and juvenile crime.
Right.
So the government said,
Right.
well, we got to do something about that.
Right.
So the government set up reform schools. They set up reform schools in the beginning was basically to set up schools for delinquent, criminal, immigrant white kids.
European immigrant
Right, who was
kids.
running around, the Meyer Lanskys and all them, who were, they didn't just become criminals at when they became adults. They, criminality is an education. So a lot of these immigrants, children started off as kids, terrorizing their own neighborhood, forming gangs, and then they matured into being, Costa Nostra and all that
Right,
stuff.
mobsters and murderers.
Right. But they had this education from the beginning of criminality. So this was understood, and it was understood amongst them that this is the way to make it in America. Not all immigrants, of course, and many immigrants did work hard and establish themselves in the way that which is respectable and without crime.
Right.
But the thing of it is that in spite of all that, the government still came up with programs and all of these things in order to help this along.
That's the key. The government created programs to help them.
Right.
When it came to our children, government programs were not created to help us. Government programs were created to literally lock us up.
Well, lock us up in order to be free labor for this capitalist system. So it was, so down south we know how many black youth were convict lease and how many black. I mean, even today we won't even have to go back. I mean, there's a judge that just maybe about a couple years ago, that was sentenced because he was selling black kids to private prisons. This
Mm-hmm.
is in Pennsylvania. This is only a few years ago. You know, we had this deal with private prisons that I will convict these black kids so y'all can make a profit.
Yep.
You know, so
Mm-hmm.
we don't even have to go back to the convict lease. But we say this at the beginning of the show. If you did not catch what we said in the beginning, this is also a form of white supremacist terrorism. It's not always the white guy with the manifesto traveling to kill black and brown people. Um, Terrorism also comes through institutions.
Right. Right. I mean, but what you brought up about this manifesto that this person wrote, and the things that he wrote in the manifesto. Now, we said earlier that we're not going to publish. We're not going. Well,
We're not going to share.
Not publish. We're not going to share his because we're not publishing it. But we're not going to share it. You're on the internet. Go find it. And if Facebook has taken it off, if you can't find it on Google, that's their problem. But it was posted earlier today.
I'm sure
you can find it. From,
I'm sure if you go
know,
to
Storefront,
you know
they have it. The New York Daily News.
Yeah, they have it.
Yeah, you know they have it. What is it? What is the other right wing rag up in New York? New York Post.
I guess.
Is it? Yeah, but yeah, all the right wing outlets I'm sure have it. But the things
Steve Bannon probably has it in stone.
Framed.
Right, yeah, right in front of us.
He printed it out and got it framed.
Right, exactly.
But the thing that this guy put in his manifesto, the things that you brought up, you know, that he's angry about automation, taking, you know, manufacturing jobs away. He's angry that, you know, healthcare costs are through the roof. He's angry about corporations having too much control and not paying people a decent wage. These are all things that us on the left, we talked about that stuff, right? That it sounds familiar and it sounds good, and you think to yourself, well, you know what, if he thought that, we might be able to work with somebody like him. Here's the key. He did not believe that the way to solve those problems was to challenge the actual corporate entities, the political entities, and the wealthy entities that create and maintain those situations. His response was to kill immigrants. That was his response. And this goes back to the issue that a bunch of us had 2 years ago in this online so-called progressive community. Y'all full of crap. And I saw some of this today earlier too. And I was so close on that unfriend button. But we had just come from church, and the Holy Spirit was just like, no, extend some grace. I don't do that often when it comes to this subject. See, a couple years ago, we had this issue with these white people, these white progressives, talking about we need to work with the alt-right in order to get Medicare for all passed and environmental reforms passed, you know, because, so what if we just disagree with them on a few things? If they agree with us on Medicare for all and climate change and student loan debt, then we can work with them to get those things passed. But what did you say earlier today that just makes this, I don't even need to go into the rest of it.
Well, I mean, we said something about, and I think you brought up about the 80-20 thing.
Yes.
But 80-20 is this, folks. Okay, so what that 80% of what the so-called white supremacist grievances are is our grievance too. But the 20% is what they're willing to kill us over.
Look.
You know, so that's the reason why we could never, and I say that we could never have any common ground, because if we could have common ground with white supremacists, then we would have done it by now. We've been in this country for 500 years. And there has been people who are a lot smarter, a lot gifted, a lot eloquent than yours truly, but they haven't been able to do it. Martin Luther King, who everybody praises and you know, and so many white people love to bring up, but even Martin Luther King did not have the ability to purge this country of the stain of racial hatred. You know, so I mean, you know, so this is something that that when we've heard this about, oh well, we can work with them. Well, maybe you can. You know what I mean? Because see, you know, maybe they will listen to you because you look more like them.
Right.
But they will.
Right.
But see, the minute that Jackie and I sit down and start talking about, well, you know, we we don't like the way that the economy is going either. And we don't this and we don't that. Yeah, well, you don't like it because you don't want to work hard.
Exactly. Well, the reason this is this way is because of the blacks,
right,
and
right,
because of the illegals, and because of the Hispanics and the Mexicans. That's where we diverge with opinion, and that's where we get up from the see. If I know that those are your opinions from the beginning, I'm not coming to the table with you at all. Why would I sit at the table with somebody whose part of their ideology is literally my elimination?
Now there has been over the course of time, just to shed a little background on some things. There have been groups that have met with white supremacists and have come to some agreement. There was Marcus Garvey, who met with, I believe, the Klan. Elijah Muhammad met with the Klan. But the thing of it is that both groups were promoting separation.
Right.
So so where they was like, well, you don't want us to live around you, we don't want you to live around us. So they agreed on that. So I mean, but those type of things, of just to say that there has been attempts, but again, they're not talking about these people who are advocating this weren't talking about us separating. They were talking about trying to get policy from government with these people and to form a coalition with these people to get government to work on all of our behalf. That will never work.
Right.
That hasn't worked, and it will never work the way that they suggested. And I'm so glad, and it's unfortunate that we had a lot of black commentators who, who I thought had better sense, would jump on the bandwagon and say, "Oh yeah, we need to, do this and do that." But this first of all shows ignorance of history, and it shows ignorance of just basic human nature. Because when you have those type of views, supremacist views, then you don't want to work with anybody else. I mean, your whole goal is to promote your own agenda at the expense of everyone else.
Exactly. And I'm glad you brought up Marcus Garvey and Elijah Muhammad making a deal with the Klan. Let's be clear on what happened with those deals. The Klan didn't keep the I mean, it's like the deals basically were, okay, look, we gonna stay away from you, you stay away from us, and don't kill our people. And the Klan with one hand was like, okay, but then with the other hand they had a torch or a shotgun on behind their back. So we have learned from this history that you cannot negotiate with white supremacy. Can't negotiate with these people. You can't sit there and say, oh well, they're sick too, they need Medicare for all too.
Or as Obama, President Obama once told our students in Howard, our kids in Howard, you have to empathize with the white supremacists. Like you have to empathize with them, and oh my God, it's like we should understand how. I don't have to understand how the two terrorists that did that that committed those murders in El Paso and Dayton, Ohio. Why should I have to understand how he feels, how they felt? Why should I have to understand how any white supremacists feel? Why should I? Well, why should anyone have to understand how they feel? So that advice by Obama just proves to me. Well, I'm not going to get into that, but the thing, right. Show. But again. Now this is the thing. You still have not. We talked about 250 mass shootings in 229 days. Not once have any politician called for any more stricter gun control. There has not been a call for now in I believe over in New Zealand when the government went into mosque. New Zealand the next day banned automatic weapons. They banned it.
They were just like, you know what? Nobody needs to. Okay, nobody. We don't think anybody needs to have those. Now, I understand that is probably not. I wouldn't trust. I don't trust American political leadership to get legislation on banning particular type of weapons. Right. I don't trust them to do that. But what I do expect them to do is to stop having this ridiculous multiple personality issue with passing federal background check, more stringent background check legislation. That's not. This is not a situation where this person, especially the guy down in El Paso, where he bought all these guns out of the trunk of somebody's car. He was 21 years
Well, he had
old.
body armor.
He had body armor. Who should be able to just buy body armor? Nobody. I don't see what you, if you listen to our show for long enough, you know that Jacqueline comes from a family of hunters. People in my family have guns to this day. If you come to people, we got folks that still hunt. We're not anti-gun. We very much support the Second Amendment and our right to bear arms as well. However, I should not be able to go and buy body armor and nobody asked me. So, we need body armor for.
But see, that's the thing. We wouldn't be able to buy body armor without them asking.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
we cannot buy body.
Yeah. So I mean, we couldn't go in there and ask for body armor.
Thank you for correcting
me.
me.
Yeah. I mean, so that's the nature of white supremacy too. Is that you can get a 21-year-old white kid, a white young male who can go in there and say, "Hey, I want this." You know what I mean? And have the money to do it.
Right.
And
silencer.
Or a silencer or bumper stocks, whatever. And receive those things. They'll just sign your name, no questions asked, not even a suspicion. Jackie and I go in there and say, hey, I want this. Well, what do you need it for?
30 days later, 16 calls from Metropolitan Police. So why do you need this again?
Right. What do you need it for?
Why do you need? Yeah.
So anyway, so this is the thing that we have to deal with, and again, the same response. Now, when I was watching CNN this morning, the first thing they did was talk about, well, what about his mental state? And like we said before, had this person, the young man who killed those 5 police officers in Dallas, Texas a couple of years ago, the black young man in Baton Rouge, nobody talked about, nobody cared. About there was no questioning of how did they grow up, what was their mental state, and they were both from the military. Nobody
brought up PTSD.
Exactly.
Yep. No, but immediately the media, this is Black Lives Matter fault when it came to those 2 black men in Dallas and in Louisiana ambushing the cops. But all these white kids, these white men, slaughtering hundreds of people, dozens of people, it's never white supremacy. It's never racism. It's always, this one individual has mental issues that we need to figure out. We need to understand that society is difficult for them. And it's going back to the Obama line. We need to understand how they feel.
Well, it's also recognizing the humanity of white people. Like even with the opioid crisis, they weren't, the white young men, the white people who are caught up in the opioid addiction. There's compassion there. The compassion is, we see their humanity. The crackheads, they're just a bunch of addicted criminals. Or
right.
It's a moral thing. See,
exactly.
and see, that's the thing, is that black people are always looked at through the lenses of morality, even though a distorted morality, because the people who are judging us through this lenses of morality have no morals themselves. But at the same time, we're judged through this lenses of morality, why white people are viewed, are seen by their humanity. So it's like, no, nobody should suffer like that. When it comes to white people, no, you shouldn't suffer like that. We need to have some help. Trump, we need to put billions of dollars in addiction treatment and stuff. But then when black people have the same issues, it's like, what about personal responsibility?
Right.
What did your parents teach you? Why? So it's never looked at. We're never viewed by our humanity. We're viewed through the lenses of morality. And I say it's a distorted morality because those folks who are judging us, as Malcolm once said, have no moral, really are not in a moral position to judge anyone.
I'm so glad you got to that point. Yep. Because we're judged to be inhuman and subhuman by people who have no humanity themselves. That's the catch. That's the conundrum we're in, and we're believing what these people say about us, but these are the people who absolutely have no humanity. And the history and what they do today and what they support today supports that. I, the argument that people keep making that people who vote for Trump aren't racist needs to die. It just needs to die. What? How are people still making that argument?
Well, they're not racist, and this is the thing. Trump's in the office for over 2 years. He has made plenty of statements that are deemed racist, and yet these supporters still support him. So if you truly are not racist, then how can you still support this man? With each comment that he makes that we know is racist. Me and Jackie and I was really talking about doing a commercial spot where we wanted to get some of our white friends who would be in this commercial with us. And one of the things is like what we wanted to do is we're tired of some white people, not all, but we're tired of some white people, especially at this Baltimore comment. We're tired of some white people telling us what is racist and what it's not. So we had this commercial was like, that's not racist. It's like, are you tired of your white friends saying, oh, come on, that's not racist. So I mean, but again, if you're a Trump supporter and you're not racist, then when he say racist things, then how can you still be a supporter of this guy? Again, and before we get into this next point, please share this video.
Yes.
Share this video. Invite your friends.
Yes.
Let them know that you have discovered the most threatening show on social media. And share this. Check out our Patreon and all the other nice things. We're going to try. We're working on our website. This is just some info. We're working on our website so we can start to get the goodies up there and stuff. But like I said, we've been looking at some college kids to kidnap and make interns.
We're not kidnapping anybody.
But we haven't really been able to we haven't done that yet. So it's just Jackie and I.
It's just
right.
Yeah.
So we're working on these things to bring you better content and those type of things. But anyway, getting back to the topic at hand. We said this morning, and I believe that this is something that needs to be said. We said this morning that religion, white supremacy is a religion.
Yes.
So what is a religion? Religion is a set of beliefs that's a codified set of beliefs. It's not spirituality, but religion is codified. Mm-hmm. And it's a way of life, right? Mm-hmm. And so is white supremacy. It's codified in a way. And those who adhere to it consider it a way of life. But there has been, since Trump, and we've been seeing this, but we have seen that since Trump, that this white supremacist ideology has entered in what they call this messianic age.
Oh yeah.
We believe, and you're only going to hear this on Luqman Nation. You're not going to hear it anywhere else.
Because nobody else is going to admit to it.
With all due respect to those out there, you're not going to hear it nowhere but Luqman Nation. We've said this morning, and we stand by it, that Trump is the white supremacist messiah that the white supremacists have been waiting for. Yes, we have had racist presidents in the past. Yes, we have had presidents who have upheld racism. But we got to look at something. Trump embodies a lot of what the white supremacists of today are looking for. Judaism preceded. Judaism was already here and precede their coming of their Messiah. Messiah is the Messiah is the crown of whatever religion. In Islam, you have the Mahdi, other religion. So you have these figures that once they come, they're going to make it right for us. This is what the Messiah does. The Messiah, any Messiah is that figure that when they come, it's supposed to make things right for us, and our way of life will be superior over everyone. Every faith that has a messianic figure believes this. And so white supremacy has the same way. White supremacy actually is the most powerful religion on the planet. It's the most powerful religion on the planet. And why we say that? Because every other religion has to submit itself to white supremacy. I don't care if you're Muslim. I don't care if you're Buddhist. I don't care what you are. When the white supremacists speak, and I'm borrowing this from Millie Fuller, which I agree, Junior. When white supremacists speak or when they get angry, there is no Allah, there is no this, there is nothing that will stop the white supremacists from dumping their bombs, committing the violence that they need to commit, either through economic sanctions, either through outright military violence. There's nothing. You can pray all you want. Now we believe in God, we believe in the Creator, but white supremacy now is dominant on this planet, and it's the most dominant faith in this planet. And so you're having these revivals in Europe. The white supremacists was up in Finland.
Right.
They won a lot of elections in
They
Europe.
just had a big thing in Poland.
Right, in Poland. And so what it is that there is this belief amongst the white supremacists of this messianic age. Now here come Trump, who is the president of the most powerful country on the planet. Now we look at this and say, oh my, but to the white supremacists, this is prophecy to them. This is prophecy. And so these ones in El Paso, Texas, and the one in Dayton and others, they will sacrifice themselves as the what they call the acolytes or whatever. Right. As the faithful. Let's put it this way. As the faithful, they know their role. Their role is, I have to do what I can to bring on this white supremacist age, and so we have to. David Duke said of Trump when Trump got elected, and this is important. He said, "Finally, we have someone in the White House who will put the needs of white people first."
Look,
now if that's not messianic talk, I don't know what it is. The fact that you have so many white supremacists in this country who welcomed the age of Trump. Steve Bannon was so inspired by Trump's election that he was like the Apostle Paul in a way. He went on a journey to proselytize white supremacy, and that's how we got Bolsonaro, right? Steve Bannon had self-appointed himself as the white supremacist apostle to go around to set up set up governments ran by white supremacists.
That's right, and that is what he did. And in almost every country where there has been a right-wing leader elected in the past 2 years, Steve Bannon went there.
Yep.
He went there to counsel and strategize with those people to tell them how to win. We talked about that.
We did
before a lot of these elections happened. None of this is an accident. Even when we look at the so-called white evangelical. Now our pastor always brings up this point that the word evangelical has been really bastardized. It's been really sullied by these white supremacists in the American Christian church, because that's what these people are. The Jerry Falwells, the what's his name, the Zionist John Hagee.
Oh, John Hagee.
The Franklin Grahams, and honestly his daddy Billy Graham, and what's the Jim Baker,
Paula White,
all of these people that a lot of my former Christian friends, who honestly these people don't talk to me anymore. I used to go to church with them. We used to serve in ministry together. And I would sit there and listen to some of these people, some of these so-called faith leaders, the Chuck Colsons and the focus on the family folks. And I'd sit there and listen to their anti-gay and their pro-America nationalistic bull. And I would tell folks there is something wrong with the things that they are saying, because none of what they are saying is in the Bible. None of what they are saying has anything to do with the gospel of Jesus Christ, because Jesus Christ was all about empowering people that nobody gave a crap about. I never understood how these people believed the narrow, very capitalist focus. Somebody on YouTube mentioned capitalism when we talked about receiving a check for reparations. We've done a show about that before. Please understand that we're not just about receiving a check for reparations. Reparations is more than just a check. We're not capitalists, but we live in a capitalist society right now. We ain't gonna get socialism next week. So I don't understand what y'all expect us to do until we can overthrow this system. Okay. Anyway, But when you
Give me my check and I'll move to a socialist country.
look, I will help. That's a good one.
Yeah.
But when you listen to the Jim Bakers and the Franklin Grahams, hello dog, and all of these white evangelical, so-called evangelical Christians with these huge platforms, they are saying that Trump is anointed by God. They're saying that. And you got black Christians who have been following these people for years and years and years, not challenging them at all. And we talked about that earlier in our As We See It. But if you do not understand from the reaction of these so-called white evangelical Christians in this country, their adoration of Trump, that this man is their Messiah, it's not because the Christian faith is so horrible and white supremacist. It's because white supremacists have hijacked the Christian faith.
And before we don't want to leave the impression that we're only beating up on white evangelicals, because see, Trump has a secret weapon, like a lot of white supremacists have. And Trump's secret weapon is the old Negro pastors.
Oh, yes, yes.
The old Negro pastors. Now, see, these Negro pastors, when Trump first was running for office, see, Trump, look, let me tell you something. Trump may be a lot of things. One of the things that man is not stupid. This man knows people for the most part. He understands how to move through. I mean, come on. The guy was a real estate developer in one of the roughest real estate markets in this world, which is New York City. So I mean, the guy knows how to maneuver. So he also understands racial politics, believe it or not. You won't get a city more diverse than New York, and so he understands racial politics. New York is not a melting pot; it's balkanized, and so what happens is that racial politics in New York is pretty heavy. So Trump knows racial politics. He understands. When he first was running, he was like, "Let me get these black pastors," Let me get these. And so these black pastors came and they met with Trump, and Jackie and I spoke about it here. This was before he ran. I mean, while he was running. But now he didn't got his foot in his mouth with the Baltimore comments. But what does he do? He doesn't apologize.
No.
He doesn't go and say, "Okay, look, my bad. I didn't mean to say it this way. I meant to say it this way." No, you know what he does? He goes and pick up the phone and he said, "What Negro pastor can I get, to sprinkle some forgiveness on me?"
Right.
And guess what? He knows that there are many Negro pastors waiting for that call. And they came. They came.
They did.
And see, again, and we talked about it here, Trump plays this game. He gets the Negro pastors up there. He goes to the trunk. He shows them the Trump family Bible. And and he serves them cheese and tea. And they sit around and stuff. And he talks about his African Americans and all this stuff. And guess what these Negroes did? These Negro pastors came up and said, "Well, I spoke with the president and I don't think that he's racist. Yes, he made some error in comment, but he didn't, And so, white supremacy, like any other ideology, has to have They always have collaborators.
Yeah. Yes.
Yep. So these Negro pastors, in my view, are collaborators with the enemy. Trump is our enemy. He is our enemy. Anytime that this man has the view that he has, and Maya Angelou who said when somebody believe what they
Maya Angelou said when people show you who they are, believe them.
Right. So I believe
the first time.
Right. So I believe Trump is a racist, and I believe he's a racist, and because look, he doesn't have a filter, and his supporters love that. Yep. I heard a caller on C-SPAN, an older white man, who said, "Oh, I love the president because he speaks his mind. He don't care whether you're black or whether you're white or this and that. Yeah, he speaks his And it goes back to what a lot of us have said. Trump has given and again, messianic talk. Messianic talk. See, when you're in a traditional religion, you practice your whatever your faith tells you to practice, and you do what you do, but you're waiting on the Messiah. Or you're waiting on that anointed one to come and make the world right for you, so you can fully express your religious values, which you believe is more superior to everybody else's religious values. Same thing with white supremacy. So now the adherents to white supremacy are calling C-SPAN and say, "I love Trump because I mean, he tells it like it is, and he's not politically correct, and this and that and the other." The Messiah has paved the way for us
Yep.
to be
Yep.
who we are.
Yep, that is exactly what they are saying. So look, believe these people. Stop second guessing these folks. These terrorists who have slaughtered 29 people so far. We do not have a final death count from these incidents this weekend. These terrorists are white supremacist terrorists. That is what they are. Trump saying that, I think he said that this was a cowardly act. Yeah, him not calling it what it is. Of course, he is a white supremacist too. The media, any media outlet that does not call this what it is, guess what? They are the propaganda arm of white supremacy. We've said that before. Many people have said that. And any politician who does not call this what it is, they are the legislative arm of white supremacists, of the white supremacist state and of the white supremacist religion. These evangelical pastors, yeah, they are the religious leaders of white supremacy. Well, let me just end because we're gonna wrap this up. White supremacists, I'm sorry, no, evangelicals. People don't understand that Nat Turner and John Brown were evangelical. Do you understand what I'm saying? John Brown was so passionate about pursuing justice for the oppressed, like the Bible tells us to do, that he was not only willing to give his life, start an insurrection, start a war to free enslaved people. He wasn't only willing to give his life, but he told his children, if you're not willing to die for this, if you're not willing to give your life for it, then you ain't my kids. I might kill you myself. Nat Turner was willing to form an army to fight for freedom. He was an evangelical based on his faith. Denmark Vesey started a rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
Got sold out by one of those.
By collaborators.
By a collaborator.
Gabriel Prosser.
Denmark Vesey, because of his faith. Well, not because of his faith, but his faith was a foundation for him, believing that he had to act. Gabriel Prosser, his faith was one of the reasons that he gave, believing that he had to act. So it's not the faith. It's not the Christian faith that's the problem. Yeah, the Bible itself is full of some stuff that men wrote, white men wrote for political reasons to do all kinds of shady stuff. But the teachings of Jesus Christ, that socialist, Palestinian-born enemy of the state, no, that's the faith. And that people who believe in those things, those people are evangelicals. White supremacy is another thing entirely. So we got a fight on our hands, y'all. We've been telling you this since we've been doing this. We got a fight on our hands. And we believe that this fight has moved from an ideological phase to everybody having to take sides now. And our question has always been, and it is tonight, remains, which side are you on?
Well, I'll end with this. White supremacy has turned this world into hell. You have a hotter climate. I mean, if you want to talk about, hell, I mean, just think about what white supremacy has turned this world into. Look at the movement of human beings, mostly brown and black people from around the planet that are leaving places that capitalism and white supremacy have damn near destroyed. And now, now you want Fortress America and Fortress Europe to keep those out that they have victimized, that white supremacy and capitalism has victimized. So again, and the irony of a hotter climate. We're literally living in hell. And so that is my take on it. Again, share this video and let people know that you have connected with the most threatening, dangerous show on social media. We will tell the truth. And one of the things about Luqman Nation is the truth will have its day here. You know, so that's it.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. One more thing. I forgot. Another aspect of white supremacy. White supremacy also manifests itself in the denial that it exists. That is also a function of white supremacy. So all y'all white progressives sitting online talking about these white supremacist terrorist murders are real. That's not what they are. They're really, no, it's not class. It's really, this is really the deep state. This isn't, these aren't racists. These aren't individual people who are racist, really murdering people. These are actors that are that have been recruited by the deep state to sow division. Guess what? You're white supremacists too.
Yeah, and slaves who ran away were affected with what?
Drapetomania.
Yeah. So you know.
Yeah, we got a lot of work to do. But anyway, we can't do all that work tonight, so we're gonna wrap this up. Thank you all for joining us. We love you, Greg Clark.
You Trump supporter. We love you.
Come back. Come back. I guess I have to unblock him, man.
No, come back. We love you.
I told you this block finger is quick. Hey, thanks, y'all. We appreciate y'all. Be really good to each other. As always, be really good to each other. And peace if you are willing to fight for it. Well, I guess I gotta go back and unblock old Greg Clark.
Yeah, I see you. Come on back, Greg. We love you. Make America sane again.
Make Greg Clark sane again.